We were supposed to meet up for the redo in the middle of April. I was actually already had a trip planned down in South Carolina with one of my girlfriends for her 40th birthday. And girls from college and her friends from across the state. And so I was going to be driving straight through Pittsburgh. So I had said to him, why don't we meet up in Pittsburgh that weekend? Like as I passed through on my way down. And we had agreed. It was going to be really late though. Like we weren't going to be able to get to the hotel together until like 11 at night, and I'd have to be up early the next morning, and so would he. But anyways, we agreed that we would meet up. So we put that on the plans, and then we went on with chatting like normal. The next thing I remember that really stands out was Easter Sunday. Because that year for Easter, we were at my aunt's house, which is where we always go. Things with my family at this point was still fine. Um, we were at my aunt's house and they had rented a big blow up jumper bouncer thing for the kids. We were all sitting outside and him and I were chatting back and forth, and I was chatting with other people at the same time because we had agreed that neither of us were looking for a relationship. Like we were simply in this period of exploration. Um, and we had talked about how nice it would be to find somebody that you trust and have a connection with to deepen the exploration, but that we were still very much, that's all we were looking for. Um, we weren't looking for a commitment, so to speak. And I remember we were outside and him and I were Snapchatting and going back and forth and texting each other. And um, you know, my sister-in-law and my cousin had asked, who I was chatting with. And so I was telling them, and back at that point, um, when you are online dating, everybody gets everybody gets a name, and it's not their actual name, right? Like, so as you're talking about people, like, and you're trying to keep people straight, like, everybody gets a name and it comes however it comes to you. And at that time, I had titled him, which is where AC came from. I had titled him Amish Cowboy. Now, they all started laughing, and it was fine. And if we're being totally honest, I get it. There have been plenty of decisions that may not have been my best decisions I've ever made. And as they laughed, and the joke was always that I can't see the red flags, and they're all telling me that there's so many red flags, and we laughed, and it was funny in that moment. But the pain from that moment came months later when he was still in my life and meeting my children, and they were still treating him with the same dismissive tone. So we were set to meet up, and then in this time there had a few different little things that had happened between him and I with miscommunications. I got Easter night, I came home from that, and he was telling me about a experience he had earlier in that day, and I got incredibly upset over it. And I was already upset. And then he went on. He went on to make a joke, or not make a joke. He went on to say, this person he was with, he had gotten the best blowjob he's ever gotten. And somehow it came up, a whole rating system came up, and words were exchanged, and feelings got hurt, and somebody, him, could not, under any circumstances, just shut the fuck up. Like he just kept digging the hole deeper and wider and deeper and wider until he was fully standing in it. And by that point, he said, okay, let's just hang up the phone. We'll go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow. And when tomorrow came, we didn't talk. He had sent me a message that was the most heartfelt, sincerest apology I've ever received. But basically we decided that we weren't gonna meet again. And that was pretty much it. We weren't gonna meet again. I don't think we were even gonna talk again. Like, I think it was pretty much like this. I, I, I'm sorry. I was a jerk. All of these things, and basically, like that. That was it. Like, let's just call it. So that's what we did. I think that lasted 2 weeks. I think it was about 2 weeks where we didn't talk. I couldn't get him out of my mind. Like, he consumed my thoughts, and there was no reason for him to be consuming my thoughts, but he consumed my thoughts. The things that I wanted to tell him to share, he was just somebody I just wanted to know more of. And so one night I finally had enough. And I texted him and I said, I don't even remember what I said. But he came back and said, I've been thinking about you. Let's catch up. And from there, everything took shape in a whole new way. So from there, we set another date to get back together. And I had told him, what was going on in my life, who I was talking to, the people I was interviewing. At that point in time, I was interviewing DOMs. I was so curious about the relationship of a Dom sub dynamic. And no matter how I tried, I could not understand it. So I had started interviewing DOMs and trying to just get a better feel for what that relationship consisted of and what went into it. Because at that point in time, I honestly was thinking that I might be a sub. I'm not a sub. I'm not. But at that point in time, I was kind of thinking maybe I am. And I had met with 2, I think, at this point. And I was interviewing the 3rd. And somehow, because I like to push buttons, the next thing I did was put the three of us into a group chat. Me, the third dom I was interviewing, and AC. So we all got into a group chat, and we are, I don't know, we're talking. I don't even, it was the most bizarre conversations. We did a few video chats, and I called him D3. And D3 basically, he wanted to meet in person. The issue was, and we weren't really far from each other, but he was in Canada. And I don't know if he was unwilling or unable to cross the border. He wanted me to go to Canada. And didn't feel safe with that. But I did actually consider it for a second. And so I'm throwing this around. I'm having this conversation with AC, and I'm like, do I go? Do I not go? And I remember him laughing and saying, well, make sure your location's on if you go, and make sure Jill knows where you are. But also, if you want my opinion, Tab, don't be surprised when he ties you to the bed and the maid finds you in a couple days, because he forgets that he even brought you. He's like, I don't get a feeling that like you're in danger that way. He's like, dude is out of his mind, like all over the place. So we laughed, and I'm like, okay, you're right. So I did not. I never went to meet with him. In fact, he ended up getting completely blocked, like, because he got a little like, and that was the thing. And that's where it always ends up with every time I've ever talked to you. It ended up like, well, you're not answering me. Why aren't you answering? You need to. And anyways, it's not a dynamic I want to be a part of. But anyways, okay. So it goes on to say that at that point in time, D3 did help me plan my redo. So we had planned the redo, and I was so far out of my comfort zone because I am not dominant in that regard. So the redo was planned, and it was unlike anything I'd ever done before. I was so nervous. So I was supposed to get to the hotel first and have things sort of already set, and then give him instructions. I was going to leave, go downstairs. I was going to change in the lobby and go back up, and give him time to get ready. But we got to the hotel at the same time. So that didn't work. And we got to the hotel, and this time physically it was deep, and it was hot, and it was passionate, and it was amazing. And after we left the hotel, we went to dinner. We laughed so hard. The waitress commented on how hard we laughed and how nice it was. When we got back to the hotel this time, I sent him upstairs with very explicit instructions, and I said to him, I want you to take the desk chair, turn it towards the window so it's away from the door, and whatever you do, whatever you hear, don't turn around. So we laughed. So I go downstairs, and I'm in the lobby. I find the bathroom in the lobby, and I get changed into this fake leather strappy domish lingerie. I am wearing a pair of Jill's boots because I don't have any boots with heels on them. And then a black, it should have been like a black like raincoat or trench coat, but it was again, it was also from Jill, and Jill is much shorter than I am. So it barely covered my ass. I'm carrying my bag and I've got my tripod in my hand. And literally I remember getting in the elevator and I was like, huh, is this what a hooker feels like? Like, I don't know because I've never done this before. So we get up to the room and I'm loud as fuck. I am not a quiet person. I'm trying to get into the room. Everything is falling out of my hands. Everything is falling out of my bag. I'm sweating bullets. I am so fucking nervous. So I open the door and I get in and he's exactly like he should be. He's facing the window, hands behind the chair, like, at his back, and he's not turning around. Him and I had talked previously many times over, and I knew that he was okay with video. So I set up the tripod and to video us, to video the whole thing. And I had a flogger, but I had never used it on anybody. So as I'm walking through and, I'm trying to like crack it on the desk and make a little bit of noise. I had a blindfold in my hand. So I get there and I slip the blindfold over him. I take the handcuffs, and the goal was to handcuff his hands together behind the chair. But the way the chair was, and it just didn't work. So, anyways, I couldn't do that. So I was like, well, just don't move, right? Like, don't reach out, don't move. Um, so I teased a little bit, but I had no idea what I was doing. And I felt so awkward until I finally told him to open his eyes. And that's when I finally took the coat off and he got up and took charge, which was my favorite part. Um, and the way he completely took charge of me was like, yes, yes, this is it. We went from there to the desk to the chaise and then to the bed. And when everything's said and done, he gets up and he goes to go to the bathroom. He runs directly into the tripod and we are dying laughing. He's like, "Are you recording us?" And I said, "Yeah." So later on, we go to rewatch it and we realize you can only see the first 10 minutes because of the way the room's set up. And I have no idea what I'm doing. So I didn't check to make sure what you could see. And he's a photographer. So he was, oh my God. We were told at that point I could never touch the camera again. I'm like, okay. So, anyways, I was dying. We were laughing. We laughed so hard that night. So hard. And I remember when all was said and done, the next morning, he's like, I said something about like, so what do we think? And he's like, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna see you again. Yeah. I'm like, okay. And it felt good. It felt so good. I knew in that moment that the connection was deep. So we each went home again. And as all this is going on, we're still sharing our experiences with other people. And I'm having experiences with other people. But I already know that he owns my heart. At this point in time, there were 3 other men that I chatted with very regularly. AC and I had talked about threesomes being one of the fantasies, one of the things that we both wanted to try. And his birthday was coming up in June, and I wanted to arrange that. But being on the apps and chatting with that many people and having so many messages come in, that overwhelmed me, and it didn't put me in a good place. So as hard as I was trying to arrange it, and then I was trying to arrange it to be out of state, it just wasn't working. And I had said to him, this is what I wanted to do, but it's not working. I said, but how do you feel about going to the club? He was like, yeah. So in all this time, we started planning to go to the club, and he was seeing other people and having other experiences. And one of the experiences that he had was somebody he was seeing on a recurring basis. And she called him one night, and he had told me. I was on my way to the pediatrician the next morning as he started telling me. She was upset, so she came over. He tied her up, and he's telling me all the details. And I am on the other end of the phone, almost hyperventilating. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know what to say. I was really struggling. And I wasn't sure how to explain what it was that was bothering me. So I called him. And I said, hey, do you have time to chat for a few minutes? He said, yeah. We're on video. I'm sitting in a parking lot. Sitting in the Pep Boys parking lot, actually. And I'm thinking this is going to be like a 10-minute conversation. Ends up, we were on the phone for over an hour. But as I'm saying to him, I need help processing this. I have a lot of feelings right now. And I'm repeating back to him everything that him and I had discussed and we had determined us to be. You don't want a relationship. You don't want emotions and feelings, and you don't want to have discussions about just everything and anything, because that's how you develop feelings. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, but you said she was crying and she was upset and she came over. And he like stopped because he's like, oh, fuck, you probably think that like she came over and like sat down on the couch and like told me about her day and I like held her, right? And I was like, yeah. So at this point, like it's fine if that's how it is with everybody. Because see, here's the deal for me. And this is what I've learned about myself. I can't be second fiddle. I can be open. I can be poly. But I can't be a mistress. I can't be the girlfriend when someone else has a wife, right? Like I like to be number one. So I was really bothered. And he's like, okay. So him and I sat and we talked and I said to him, listen, like I don't know how to do this. And I want to do this and I'm trying to do this. I don't know how. Like I have to figure out how to decompress this and how to deconstruct this. And he agreed. And he said, so you have to be able to help me process. And if you can't help me process, because that's like crossing the border, then I can't continue. And he's like, I can do that. He's like, I don't think that's too much. I think that I can do that. Like we can work through these things, right? I'm like, okay. And that was, I think, something that nobody in my friends and family saw. They could see that there were moments I was upset. They could see that there were moments I was unsettled. They could see when my anxiety was taking over. But they never got to see his very gentle response to it. They never got to see how we worked through it. And the things that we were dealing with, I never really explained to other people because they would never get it. They did not understand open relationships and they thought this was all a bunch of ridiculousness that I was bringing on. From that moment on, he answered my call every time I called. He helped me process on a level that's inconceivable to most people. So after we got done processing that, we looked at the dates and he decided that we're going to see each other every 4 to 6 weeks. I said, okay. We agreed to see each other in June. And we were going to go to the club. That was our third date. Our third date was the club, and it was so many things. We never discussed jealousy, and he would never admit he was jealous. In the middle of all of this, over 4th of July weekend, Carolina came up to visit me. Caroline is the first person I ever connected with on the app, and I met him in person for the very first time in April when I went down to South Carolina to see my girlfriends from college, and then also stopped and saw him because that's where he lived. Carolina. Carolina came up to Buffalo to see me. And I was feeling really torn because I had very definitive feelings for AC. Well, Carolina was up visiting me. AC went back to the club by himself. I was again, I had this rush of feelings I couldn't put my finger on. And this one took me months to put this one together. That's the thing about healing, is sometimes it takes months to get the message. He came back from the club. Carolina left. Him and I are on the phone. We're catching up. He's telling me about going to the club, and I got quiet because I was uncomfortable. I was unsure of how I felt. He's telling me about a couple he met. And after all was said and done, I was so jealous. I was so upset. And this sweet man was in the middle of making my biggest, deepest, darkest, most secret fantasy come true. That's who he was. Months later, I finally realized that my jealousy over him going to the club alone came from the fact that I didn't feel secure enough to do the same thing. And it led me into this situation where I really had to sit down and question, if I don't want to go alone, why am I upset that he is going alone? He's doing something I don't want to do. It would be like watching him eat prime rib. I hate prime rib. Hate it. I wouldn't be jealous if he ordered prime rib and was eating it. I wouldn't be jealous that he was enjoying it. I wouldn't have any feelings at all on it. So why am I having such feelings over the fact that he is doing something I'm not comfortable doing? Oh, it's because secretly I want to do it. Secretly, I want to be comfortable enough to go. But I'm not. And that's why I'm jealous of him. We met again in July, in the middle of July. We went back to the club. And we spent 2 whole days in Pittsburgh. It was fucking amazing. We went back to the club that night. And he had set up for that couple that he met to put me on the cross in the Red Room. It was fucking amazing. It was absolutely everything that I needed, that I wanted. And he made sure I got it. He became my sense of safe. I could explore, I could try anything as long as he was with me. We put ourselves in so many situations. We tried so many different things. It was amazing. It was on that trip that I was really struggling. And for the fact that we were never supposed to have any sort of feelings. That morning, he got up, and I was already emotional. I had cried most of the night. He got up and we had sex. And then he threw a towel at me and went to get in the shower. And I fucking lost it. Because, see, when you very first start healing, you lose it over things that you didn't realize how they would trigger you or how they would make you feel. I was so angry. And I had flashbacks to being with my ex-husband. I had flashbacks of not being wanted, of not being worthy. So by the time he got out of the shower, I was banging things around in my suitcase. I got dressed and got ready and came out of the bathroom, and he was gone. I grabbed my bags. I walked past him sitting at breakfast, and I walked out the front door and I put my stuff in the car. I came back through and I sat down. And he pulled a $50 bill out and he put it on the table, and he's like, "You need gas to get home." And I said, "I do not. I'll be fine." And he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'll be fine and I'll figure it out." I was still seething. We went back upstairs to double check that everything was taken care of, that we had everything out of the room. And as we were walking from breakfast back upstairs, I said, "What, you're just going to walk in front of me?" And he turned around and he said, "Until you can be nice to me, yeah, I am." And it was like I ran into a brick wall. Because nobody had ever put me in my place with love before. We got upstairs and I sat down on the bed.
From your calendar, wind down. Starts in 10 minutes.
I sat down on the bed and I started bawling. And he said, "So you're mad because I got up? You think I need to ask your permission to take a shower?" And I realized how stupid that sounded. And no, that's not what I actually think. No, that's not what I want. But yes, that's what I wanted. And I said, "I'm scared I'm going to be too much for you." He held me and he kissed my forehead. And he said, "Maybe someday you will, but not today." I knew I loved him. I knew he was who I needed. The next 6 weeks were a fucking train wreck. I got the urge from the universe that it was time, and I had to go. And so I moved to Pittsburgh. I told my family I was going to move, and they lost it. And I understand. I understand why. I understand that they were scared. I understand that they felt like I couldn't make ends meet living at home without expenses. How was I going to make it in Pittsburgh? But I did have expenses because at home I had the entire studio and I wasn't using it. So that was $3,000 a month. They were supportive of me moving, but not moving out of town. You would have thought that I told them I was taking my kids to Japan. They took the plates off the car. We said the nastiest things ever to each other. They accused me of moving for AC. But I didn't. I had to find an apartment. I had to get out of my lease. I needed to find an apartment. I had a list of things that had to get done, and I wasn't sure when the move was going to happen. But when they took my plates off the car, the only thing I could muster to say was my goal was to be out by the end of the year. But thank you. I will be gone. I will be gone by Labor Day. I circled the date on my calendar. And I was. I packed up the U-Haul. picked up the truck. And I left. The day I told him that I found the apartment and everything was definite and these are the dates, he came back and he was like, I'm so happy. The entire 6 weeks, he didn't breathe a word, not a word. He did not give me one thought or feeling on whether I should or shouldn't move. The decision needed to be entirely mine. And so I moved. I got here with the U-Haul. Our 5th date, he met me in Pittsburgh to move me in. If you didn't know us, you would never have thought that it was only our 5th time being together in person, and you never would have thought that we were not committed. Once I moved, things started changing because he was only 2 hours away. We could see each other more. It was maybe second time he was in Pittsburgh. And as everybody in my family told me over and over again, I was going to get hurt because he just wanted sex. There he was on a Sunday, building bunk beds for my kids. At this point, he's still the only person that my kids have ever met. The next 6 months were heavy.